Well, happy Earth Day, everyone. How you doing out there? So good to be with you today. Alain Picard here as we go live for a painting demonstration and paint along, I'm hoping, with you. I hope you're ready to paint today, and I've been looking in the comments, in the chat, and checking you out and seeing where you're from. I can see it right over here, and you're tuning in from all over the place, which is always exciting and one of the real miracles of modern technology. And I'm just so excited to join with you today and to be able to do this together in this unique season that we find ourselves in. With self-isolating, we can connect through our creativity. And for those of you who are involved in the Create 30 Challenge, you're doing amazing. It's day 22, so I'm gonna do mine with you. And just a few shout outs from, I saw a woman come in from Thessalonica, Greece. I think your name was Paula. It's so wonderful that you've joined. And then, you know, I had a little correspondence with one of our modern day heroes. His name is Mark, and he's on the chat. He's an ER doctor from Tucson. What's going on, Mark? Thank you for your service in this time. And as we say hi to Mark and shout him out, so glad, Mark, that you're going to be painting along with us today. We think of all of those who are serving in various capacities, especially in the health community right now, the medical community, taking care of us as we endure through this time. So, people from everywhere. Let's see, we got Ricky from Indiana. What's going on? Bobby from Chicago. Dr. Daphne from New Jersey. What's up, Daphne? And many, many more. It's so great. More from Tucson. Hi, Irene. And Deb Womack is on from North Carolina. How you doing, friends? And Vic. And I'm seeing Holland. I saw Switzerland. All over the US. So this is going to be great. We are a part of a very big creative family in this moment. So thanks for joining me. Today's topic is tulips. It's tulips. We're going to paint tulips, and it's Earth Day. Finally here, I live in New England in Connecticut, and things are finally springing up out of the earth. Hallelujah. It's getting a little bit warmer here. Maybe your temperatures are a little bit more tolerable. 100 plus degrees in Arizona is not tolerable. So sorry about that for you folks. Anyway, we're going to jump in, and I got an opportunity to photograph some tulips before they wilted and died, and I wasn't able. We went to the grocery store and no tulips. So we're going to use that photo reference today, and I've got mine right up beside the easel. And I've also got my trusty thumbnail, which I've created, which has given me a little sense of this composition today. So basically, I'm just really looking forward to creating a little cluster of that floral arrangement that's springing up, and really some beautiful reds and really pinkish reds. So I'm excited to play with color against some of those green leafy aspects below the tulips. So we've got, I know you want to know, we've got UArt 500 dark. So it's the dark, and I've been using that. I had some of it, and I really wanted to take an opportunity this month to get used to that surface. I've been really enjoying it. So I'm going to use the UArt Dark 500 grit. It's the premium mounted board, which is awesome. It's really a nice durable surface. So that's what we're doing now, okay? And I've also got pastels set out that are gonna relate to this topic. Unfortunately, I don't have a palette cam for you, but you'll see them as I raise them. Lots of reds and violets and greens from the tulips, as well as a little bit more of a bluish cast to that background, okay? Well, what are we gonna do first? So the first thing that I like to do is the thumbnail, and I've done it in hard pastels, which I have just grown to enjoy. I like to do my thumbnails in hard pastels. They just get me in the mood for pastel painting. A little bit more of a punch than sometimes if I'm just using charcoal or a pencil or anything, and I really like to work on that toned paper, that Strathmore toned gray, okay? And I've got, you know, light values, middle tones, and dark value. This is a dark value dominant piece. This is a real rich palette, and those tulips are not necessarily light in value. So we've got a lot of rich depth of value. So I have a couple of hard pastels here that I'm going to try to use to sketch in, and one's a little bit more, you know, I'm going to use the one you can see better, basically. I don't want to get anybody upset that they can't see what I'm sketching in. That's my first phase. I want to sketch up this basic composition in a way that I can begin to attack it, okay? So I hope you'll do that too. As I work, you should be able to see the reference, and we will go from there. Okay, so as we look at this, my thumbnail, really the roses, I'm sorry, the tulips are clustered high in this 9 by 12 inch board. So I want to really keep them at that, like almost all above the halfway mark, all of these tulips. And we really want to look at those simple, abstract value shapes. So that's what I'm looking for. And initially, I want to, essentially, I want to kind of frame out that lighter value shape as it breaks out of the darker value background, okay? So that's what I'm looking for first. Probably get my top tulip way up here. Maybe he stops right around there. And, you know, these two, they're like, I thought to myself, you know, who's the star of this show? Is it the one in the front? And I think, you know, this is a funny, interesting kind of thought, but not funny, but I think that it's not that the one tulip is the star, but it's really this little grouping, this kind of coming together here on Earth Day as we come together. So we're going to kind of celebrate this little grouping right here. That will be the focal zone, and we'll enjoy that. That's the star, okay? So I'm kind of framing out the tulip as an abstraction, really, just as a shape. And sometimes I just crudely kind of come around the shape, like very simply, and just try to create a little geometric element that frames it in. And hopefully you can see this no problem. As I look, I try to kind of see the big, I like to deal with the whole. So I try to see, how does this flower over here relate to the whole, and how far in my composition does this tulip go left to right? Those kind of things help me to place the subject on my surface. Now, you know, we got some great leaves, and they're really quite dark, so I don't want to use too much of this light value, but it shoots down the composition this way. These fantastic large leaves of the tulip. There's a horticulturist out there who's cringing because I'm going to use all the wrong terminology, and you know what? I'll still be able to paint those tulips because we're going to do it. We're going to see as artists. I don't need to know the scientifics here. I'm going to look at value and shapes and color relationships and create that beautiful impression of these gorgeous flowers. I'm looking at some of the light here that moves at the edge of this nice foreground tulip leaf petal. There's my brain. Alain Picard, activate brain. It's called a petal. You're all breathing a sigh of relief. Yeah. Friends, it's been a busy week, so I'm just happy I'm here with you and that my mouth is actually communicating coherently. Okay, so I'm looking at some of these fantastic supportive shapes of these petals that hold up, you know, our little characters, and we want to place that little guy in here. It's like a little tulip, and as I look at just the relationship, it's right in here. And you can see as I sketch, I'm not trying to be too perfect about it. I try to retain a sense of playfulness. Not that I don't want to be accurate. I do care about where these shapes fall and how they relate to one another. I certainly do care about that, but I don't want to draw them perfectly. I want to have kind of a feeling that I can adjust and flex and sculpt as we begin to hammer away with that wonderful, wonderful soft pastel that will, you know, create that painterly, impressionistic feel. So now we're starting to see this emerge, and truly the light is coming from this side, striking. I set up a side light to affect them and really create a glow and some shadow patterns. So we're really going to see some fall off of light on the left side and some, playing in and out of the light. And we want to know where those lighter value shapes are. So sometimes I'll actually look at where do the light and shadows separate, and I'm more interested in those at times than where the things separate. Where does the petal separate from the background or the tulip? We want to know where the light and shadow separate. So that's really going to help us build a dramatic image and a design. You can see this is the separation of light and shadow here on that petal. Okay, picking up on that, and over here we come over and frame a little bit of light and shadow pattern on the petal down below. Now I'm just using this sanguine color as a way of separating, because this UArt dark is not black, but it's pretty rich. It's a nice anthracite. There's a good word for you. A nice dark gray. And so we just need to separate. I don't really like to draw in white. That's just my thing for whatever reason. It's just a little jarring for me. Okay, I'm starting to feel good about this. Like, I understand where things are falling. So that's really phase one. We want to lay that out. There are different ways you can begin. You can begin to just mass in a haze of shapes, but that can get, if you're heavy-handed, that can be problematic, because you could end up with just too much on there before you really figure out locations. So I'm gonna, take a step back and check that out. I've basically got a sense for this. Let me just take one step back. Always want to keep yourself stepping back. I want to know where that little stem is of our foreground tulip. Let's just place the edge of that stem. That's great. That comes down in there. There's one that shoots down over here. So it can look a little bewildering at this stage without having some lights to separate, but we will momentarily deal with that. Now, lots of little dark on dark stuff in here. Don't want to create any more. That's enough. Okay, I've got enough. Now, I've got enough right now to step into some massing in, and just wanted to check in if there's any questions that you had. So I'll stop a couple times throughout the demo and respond to a few of your questions, okay? So that'll be fun. Austin has a question. How you doing, Austin? How do you cut your UArt sanded paper? Yes, okay. So especially this is the premium mounted board, so it's thick and it's like plastic. It's wonderful stuff. I use a large utility knife to cut mine. It just happens to be right here. I don't use a little X-Acto blade to cut these boards because they're too thick. I cut them with a utility knife. Use a nice sharp blade and a metal edge to keep that aligned, and just score it, and then a few, 3, 4, 5 moves and it'll snap through. Gets a little deeper every time. And then when you're using the paper, that's pretty easy to cut. I still use the utility knife because I find it to be a more durable, stable cutting tool with a metal straight edge. However, I think if you had X-Acto blades and a nice clean blade, you could cut it. I think it's just way easier with the utility knife. Okay, so that's what I do, and I hope that helps. And one more question here from Marilyn. Hi, Marilyn. The UArt high number is the finer sanded paper, is that correct? Yeah, so that's a great question. So the UArt numbering system is the grit, and the higher the number, the finer or smoother the surface. So the higher the number, really, you're not going to have the ability to hold as much soft pastel. However, the lower the number, the rougher, right? So that stuff eats your soft pastels alive. And you know, when you get down to those 280 numbers, it's very, very rough. So, you know, it becomes more of a stylistic preference. Typically, you know, UArt 400, middle of the road, you can do it with some texture or very smooth. UArt 500, just that little bit smoother, but still has a really nice tooth and builds up pretty quick though. That's why I like it for demos and such, okay? So 600 is kind of where I draw the line, and I rarely use it, but I will. And it is good for portraits that you want to be pearlescent. Okay, here we go. Let's get back to work. So I've got background color, right? So I don't need to go there. I need to just start framing out some light. So let's start in a bit of pink and peach. I've got some cooler pinks and some warmer. And so this is a soft pastel, and I'm just gonna squint and kind of start to really just pull out that sense of where that lit side, it's not just that these tulips are lit, they've got different colors. They've got some lighter value and pigmentation on the bottom of these tulips, really pretty. So I'm just gonna frame in some of that with this wonderful Diane Townsend soft pastel. I can hear the difference because she puts pumice in her soft pastels. You can hear it. So just kind of grabbing the edge there and there. I know where those characters are. Maybe there's a little, that's probably too light for over here. Maybe just a little bit in my little guy. And then I'm gonna move into some middle tone, something nice and rich, just to establish some body on these. And you can see this is a Art Spectrum extra soft pastel. It's a big square format, and I use them all. They're so wonderful, all these soft pastels. And just very simple massing in. We'll bring that down. I'm squinting my eyes to see how the shapes relate to one another. When they fuse together, I'm gonna fuse them a little bit. I'm not gonna separate one tulip from the other entirely if their color and value fuses together, okay? I wanna see those relationships of shapes and value. Okay, so I'm just turning, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm like turning this little square tool because it's got broader edge, it's got different sizes. So I'm using a thinner side to create that kind of mark, okay? So I'm still trying to make those little side strokes and choppy marks, but it's a smaller mark, which is great. And those marks were pretty strong. I was putting a lot of pigment down, and I did that because I was fairly confident about the location of the tulip. I don't think it's in the wrong place, and I'm gonna have to move it, so I don't wanna use any pigment. But we do wanna manage the amount of pressure we use when we use our pastel to affect how much of the tooth we cover with the pastel we're using. Okay, so now it's coming alive, right? We start to see where these tulips are. Wonderful, wonderful salmony pink. Let's get something on that dark side just to have it. So I'm gonna go even darker and richer. I'm looking at my palette and seeing what I can use. Let's try this. Let's just test and see. Yeah, it's a little darker than the previous pigment. It's not as pink. It's a little bit more rusty. So I'll use a little, I'm gonna be a little lighter handed with this one just because I don't know if this color is the ringer or not. So I wanna be able to put a couple more layers of pastel over it and affect that color with others to get to the wonderful and desirable result. So here we can check at almost like right up the stem, the back of that tulip comes out. On that left side of these flowers, we're seeing the shadow side. So that's where it's getting darker. So you see me place it on the left side. I'm not placing it on the right. And right in here on the little, our little one, our little member of the family. Now I actually want to go darker. So I've got a very pink, I'm cleaning my fingers for a sec, very cool violet here. Now look, this is the first color, yeah. This is the first color that's probably darker than the paper itself. And it's a soft pastel. And I'm gonna frame that edge a little bit as I want a little color at the edge between the hot tulip and the cool background. I just wanna put a little color there at that transition. That's a fun little way of framing in a shape that transitions from something warmer to something, you know, more neutral and cooler, which in this case our background is, okay? So now you can see I'm starting to frame out that dark side shape that surrounds the abstraction of the three tulips. I hope that makes sense when I say the abstraction. I'm really looking at those basic shapes, you know, this negative shape around here is an abstraction that fits in like a puzzle piece to these shapes. Who loved playing Tetris, right? When you can fit all the little pieces together and, you know, go to the next level. Well, that's what we're doing. We're trying to find the way the pieces fit into one another just right to create the desired shape and composition. All right, so I'm actually putting some of this violet in the background. I think I'm gonna put some cooler colors over it, but for now I'm gonna let some of that get up there into that area. And this is helping me just kind of silhouette or frame out the outside shape. And I don't know if you've heard this, but artists are distinguished shape makers. And I just love that quote. It's a quote that I did not come up with. I learned it along the way. I believe someone from the Boston School of Painters said it first. And I think it's great to think of ourselves as distinguished shape makers. That means we're always composing. We're not just rendering. We're not just trying to draw or paint what we see, but we're also trying to sculpt out and beautify in such a way that an elegant shape emerges. So we're trying to be selective at times when we do that. Okay, now we're starting to see our friends with some value around it. How are we doing? Okay. A couple more minutes before I do some more questions. So I think from here, I'd love to see a little indication of what's happening below in our tulips, and then we'll get into, you know, that dark just establishes the background fine. So let's jump in and see what we can do with our petals. This is a green that's basically the same value as my board. It is, I wonder whether you can even see it well. I can see it because the color shift, it's warmer and it has more chroma, but it is the same value as the board, which is kind of fascinating. But I need this green in there, so I'm gonna use some of that at the middle dark value range. And I need to go darker, believe it or not, as I go into some of these, and I may go into a more blue-green. We'll see what I can find. Is that darker? That's not darker. Okay. Sometimes you think they're gonna be darker than they show up to be. Let's find something. Okay, this is actually like just a dark gray, but it is dark enough. I just need the value for now. I can kind of play with the color once I get some value down. And I'm coming down this shadow side edge of this petal, and I love the way it kind of turns in and out of the composition, creates a nice movement up. So I'm just framing in this petal because it's wonderful. As you can see, we went from a very chromatic, you know, range of color. Now I'm in essentially gray because I couldn't find a really dark green really quickly. And this will do. And you know, color gets all the glory, all those chromatic, you know, these pinks and reds that end up on this are going to get all the glory. But these neutrals, they're doing some heavy lifting for us. And they're very important as well. We need them in our paintings to establish tone, to create visual support, and to be places of rest for the eye, where the eye doesn't have to, you know, get stimulated by every square inch or every square centimeter of the painting. So I'm gonna squint my eyes again, really squint at this. Now we're getting some of these darker values framed in that are sort of like in the behind things, behind, you know, the petals that are behind the foreground petals. So this quieter hue will work well, being more neutral and having that value that we need. Just a little more there. The background itself gets a bit lighter on this side. We'll get a little haze in there and much darker on the right. Okay. Just gonna sneak in. I'm squinting, squinting, squinting. Let me just take a break with this dark gray, clean my fingers. I'd love to get something that's, let me try this hard pastel, see what, see it there, it's a little light. That's the big adjustment to the UArt dark, which is, you know, it's so awesome because it gets drama quickly, but you know, you really got to have rich darks to go darker than the surface. But let's just use this. It's a nice cool green, and I like to get a little squiggle in. Sometimes I'll squiggle in with some linear hatching alongside of the side stroking just for the texture. And then I can, you know, use that edge as well. Even with the hard pastel, I can drag the side of the stick like that and get some nice, you know, just get some nice color on there as we need it. Let me sneak a little bit of this into this little tiny shape below the tulip before it goes lighter. Great, so that, I know that that's not very bright, but it's necessary having this. Let's pop out a little bit of the light briefly so we can see, you know, this is a neutral, a very neutral, warm green. Not a lot of color in it. And I think with, you know, just in dealing with greens in general, we need to create variety, and variety in the color of the greens, on the warm side to cool side, on the blue side to yellow side, as well as how much chroma they have. You know, we don't want everything to be highly chromatic. That can become very garish. Just sneak in here really quick with this, and then I'll take a couple questions. Establish this foreground light on this leaf. Squint, 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 simple, simple. Okay. Let that go right off the bottom. Good. All right, clean those fingers. What do you want to know? Let's find out. Okay. Christy. Hi, Christy. Has a question. What brand of hard pastels do you prefer? New Pastels are my favorite by Prismacolor. I really like them. They're kind of the softest hard pastel. I also have found that Cretacolor is quite nice. Cretacolor, that with a C. So those are good. Try those. I really love the New Pastels. Debbie. Hi, Debbie. What brand pastels are you using today? Okay, I'm using lots of brands. You will see me use I'm probably going to use 10 different brands of pastels, Debbie. So they're soft. I'm going to be using Terry Ludwig, Schminke, Diane Townsend Soft Form, Great American, Art Spectrum Extra Soft, anything square there. Yeah, and a little bit of, what are the Richardson Handmade? There's some Richardson Handmade, and that might be it. There's a couple of Rochers in there, but you don't really need those. They're just really fun. They're really expensive. Okay, so that was that, and then Carol. Hi, Carol. Can you explain how you sketch in a light source when it's not there in your reference, and that's all you have to work from? Oh, that's really an interesting question. So basically, what do you do if your reference is just not that exciting? It doesn't have a strong light source. How do you sketch that in? My first statement to you, Carol, is I don't really do that because I try to create or find the light that I'm looking for. Like in the case of these tulips, I lit them with side light in the studio with a light source, and then photographed them with that kind of lighting, so that I would have the darker background and the soft but visible light transition. Now, if you have a scene where you are trying to give it more drama, you kind of have to play by the rules of the light in the scene. So if the light were coming from sort of this direction in the sky, but it was too soft, maybe it was really cloudy, maybe you could add a little more drama to it, but I find that it's quite difficult actually, and it's one of the greater sources of frustration to try to pull dramatic lighting out of a reference that has none. So my encouragement to you is just really try to create your own reference that, you know, it's not that hard to actually, in your house, you could get a practical light source, like a lamp or something, even if you don't have some special light, and you could put it next to, you know, anything, and then create that dramatic light and have a pattern of light and shadow on your subject. I really encourage you to do that. And then when you're outside, shoot in the morning, shoot in the evening. When the light is lower in the sky, you'll always have light and shadow patterns, okay? That's like, you know, that's a kind of a fail-safe. It's just shoot early or shoot late. When that sun is low in the sky, you're gonna have dramatic lighting. All right, is that good? Cynthia, how you doing, Cynthia? Do you ever leave some of the black background unpainted? You know, I do, and you'll see it by the end of this that there'll be some of that poking through. And in a case like this where the background's already dark and rich, I will certainly probably leave some of it. Now, there might be conditions where I don't want to leave it, but in this case, I will likely let a little of it poke through here and there. And okay, so that's it. Here we go. So I'm going to keep painting, and I hope that you'll continue to join me in this journey as we create here. All right, I'm thinking about if I want to jump in and push some blue back there, and I think I would. I do like the idea that we get nice and dark. So this is a rich navy, darker blue. So I'm just trying to push that value behind the subject so we have that nice, both now the color and the value we're looking for. That's going to allow these tulips to really kind of explode. As I do this, I'm just squinting my eyes looking at the abstract shape that comes around the subject. I'm letting the navy and this violet mix with one another. Now, as I look, you know, as I come down here and that dark value continues, I'm just looking at, I need a little stem that I'm missing, and then this movement of the leafy petal, just to frame that in. Now this navy blue is a Townsend, it's a Diane Townsend, it's a nice rich dark. And they come in kind of irregular, they're not a perfect square, but you know, I break them and then still can create these nice big bold strokes. Okay, I'm gonna go just that touch lighter in value as I move to the left, and that's really light. Let me see if I can jump one step darker than that. This is a blue-gray. Just want to feel that atmosphere surround these tulips. And a little bit of that tonal transition from the darker towards a mid-tone is a nice, it will create a nice airy feel in your painting. surround this bottom petal. Just put a little bit of this middle dark blue-gray at the edge, and then perhaps we'll go right in with that lighter, slightly lighter version just once. Okay. Now we start to see that shape and cluster. I want to break in to the petals with a little bit of a negative shape of the background, peeking through here and there, perhaps right there. And once more on this side, maybe right in here. And then I'll go back to the darker blue-gray. So I'm not going to push and blend right now. I'm just going to let this build up. I like letting those pigments kind of go to work for me as I push them into one another. And okay, so we have no real chroma in the petals. They're very neutral at the moment, so we can punch those up. When you use a really dark pastel, make sure you get those fingers clean. I have these wet wipes over next to me, and I'm getting my fingers clean so that I can pick up other colors and not, get them so dirty. All right. So let's jump back in for a moment to the tulips themselves, and I've got a nice mid-tone cad red here, and I'm just going to play at some of the transitions of light and shadow and use stronger color as I do. More chroma in this particular red than we've used so far. You can just jump in at the transition of the lit side and the shadow side of these tulips. Right up into this top, the largest of our tulips up top. Push that strong red in there as well. Sometimes I'll squiggle with the soft pastel and just get a little sketchy and then turn it on its side and create some side stroking. Right at the edge, I'm going to put that hot red in at the edge of the petal. I'm having a laugh today inside my head because I cut my teeth in portraiture and got into landscape painting and portrait and figure, and then started doing still life as a way to work on composition and study subjects. And I don't think I even know how to describe these tulips. I'm sitting here like struggling to describe what a leaf is called and a petal and all that, and it's just hilarious. So I hope you all have some grace for me in that regard. Now we're getting that color in, and you can see just a nice, strong, a little flower like this. I'm not going to ever really tighten it up. It's just going to be more expressive. Okay, great. This color really helps. It really helps punch it all up, gets us into the next level of saturation. So now we can take those leaves a little further, get some more green on them. All right, let's jump in and warm this up. Let me try a mid-tone green first, just to get some more color on there. Nothing too crazy, but a little more light. Greens are tricky. There's no doubt about it. So I'm gonna kind of ease my way up to the really exciting colors. Because when we overstate those exciting colors, it looks garish. But if we can get it right, it'll have a nice feel. A little bit of light hitting that petal. And I'm just squinting, looking for those moments where the value raises higher on the value scale, where I see those emerge. I'm just going to touch that just to let it drop back a little. So that's a pinky touch to just diffuse it and let it drop back. Right through here, I see this color on this foreground leaf. And I'm trying to be even gestural about how I lay these marks in. I get a little movement directionally with these leaves, and also, yeah, a little bit of that texture, that linear looking texture that is in these long wide leaves. Let that build up through the application of the pigment. When I just want to get that tone and color in without all the texture, I will lay in those side strokes. I might go against, you know, I'll go this way on a leaf that's going up just to create a tonal statement. All right, this on this right side needs to get warmer, so I'm gonna, this is a cooler green here. It's a bluish, minty kind of a green. And just maybe a little of it back here, perhaps right there. Great, perhaps just a warmer version of something quite similar. You can see that when I say warmer with this green, why is it warmer? It's warmer because there's more yellow in it. So we're moving towards that warmer side of the color wheel in the color family. So I'm warming up the hue. Just adding some little flickers where I see the petal through the scene. Get a little bit on the, you know, richer side of the stem. The lighter side gets very yellow. Put this green on the left side of the stem and perhaps let it run down the edge of a leaf. A little bit of this in here. You can see how that yellow is infusing some color in the leaves now. Perhaps I can come up and just break in a little leaf. I'll need to push and pull and sculpt at some of these to refine their shape. I'll try to lay it down with a bit of energy. All right, how are we doing on time here? Perhaps we can do another question or two. It's getting close to the quarter till the hour, so let's do a couple questions. Put that paper towel down. Judy, hi Judy. Your question is, do you ever paint flowers from life? With tulips, they change so much throughout the day, opening and closing. It's tricky to catch them holding still. How do you address this? Yeah, that's interesting. I think they follow the light, really. So I had painted these tulips, I think it was the day after Easter. We bought them for Easter. So I painted them from life, and I did a painting in about, 90 minutes or an hour. I kept it fairly quick and small. And you're right, like they will actually physically move, tulips. So that's the issue of any organics, any kind of flowers from life. And you really have to work quick and work at it. But I find that working from life is a wonderful opportunity to really study color. And it's like anything else. When you go out plein air painting, the clouds are moving, things are subject to change, and you've got to oftentimes anchor your decision in your sketch. So you have to really cement your concept in your sketch. So that's really what I do, so that if things change a little bit, I don't have to change my painting to try to all the time to try to make it look like what I'm looking at. I stay with my concept and utilize the subject, okay? That's what you do when you're working from life. please keep going on that and do some more. Susan has a question. What would you recommend as a good neutral set of colors? Oh, the set recommendations. It's hard. There's so many good pastels nowadays. It really makes it challenging. And neutrals, yeah, there's actually a lot of neutral sets out there. I remember buying Terry Ludwig's set of neutrals. I think they were called the Maggie Price neutrals, and they were beautiful. They were like one of the really first sets of serious neutrals that I bought of a soft pastel, and was like really thankful that I had them. Nowadays, man, I just have so many pastels. I'm not buying little sets very much, so I don't often know the best, supplemental set to purchase. But that set of neutrals from Terry Ludwig was wonderful. Barb has a question. Hi, Barb. Do pastel artists always stand when they paint? If so, why? That's a great question. I stand. So the answer is preference. Some artists like to sit. Some like to stand. I think for me, I really enjoy standing so that I can work from the shoulder, so that I can use my body when I paint, and so that my marks actually come from the body, not just from the wrist. So if I'm sitting, I'll usually, it's a little bit of a more contained feeling, and I like the ability to back up really quickly to assess the work. So for me, standing really allows me to paint with energy and to make marks from the shoulder. Now, there are circumstances where sitting is important, like if I'm doing a portrait of someone from life and I don't have a model stand, I will sit to see them at eye level. And there's lots of ways to keep it fresh while you're sitting, but you really have to remember to get out of that chair and back up. So for me, it's about energy, and it's about working from the body when I'm making the marks, okay? All right, let's keep going. All right, we need more pigment up here. Let's get back into our pinks and maybe, scrub in a little more on the light value side. This is a kind of warmer peachy pink. The flowers are kind of cool colored in the pinks that get lighter, but I'm going to imbue them with a little bit more warmth just for fun, just because I like it. I like that peachy warmth. Give it a try. There's a lot of mid-tone, a lot of richness in these tulips. So I'm going to go back to some of this richness. This is a little bit more orangey pink, but it's very mid-tone, so I like it. We're just going to jump in and chop away there. And I'm trying to get more of this nice chromatic color to flirt with the cooler color and let them intermix with one another. Let the color do the work. Let the pigment play with each other, as opposed to you blending it all. Then it gets a little duller. There is a time and a place for blending for sure, and I do it. I want you to know I do. But I want this color to mix into one another. I'm going to grab it just a bit lighter pink and mix it in. As we come down, I actually would like to go cooler as we go underneath. As I go underneath this, as the pigment itself, as the color of the tulip itself changes toward a cool, almost violet light, I'm going to lighten that up. Capture a sense of that here. Here we go. You can see this is much, much cooler. So I just put that warm peach down. Now I'm putting this cool, and we're going to get a nice contrast between the two temperatures, not just values, but also those temperatures are interesting to see together. And this is building up a little bit of the suggestion of that texture on the petals. I'm going to come in here and just suggest some of these petals opening, turning. I'm going to treat them, I want to really treat them in an abstract fashion, not get sucked into drawing every little thing. but really suggesting the top of this petal right there. Let's get in on the bottom and just push that value lighter. I like the movement that nobody's kind of straight, everyone's on an angle. That's also a nice aspect of this subject. I'm going to take that light and just touch the edge of this flower over there, maybe just touch down here. Now I have not used white. This is a pink. And I haven't used any yellow yet either, so that's something I'm keeping an eye on. I'm going to use a cool violet instead of red. This, as you can see, this is more of that cool red violet in a mid-tone, and I'm just bringing that in as well. I want to just convey that sense of the texture. Sneak that in and around. Okay, I'm going to come back into the background. I need to work the negative shape a bit to contain. Sometimes things grow as we work on them. You know, this tulip is kind of getting wider as I'm working on it. So then you work the background and you contain the shape if it does start to grow on you. More of this wonderful red violet to frame out that dark leaf against the flower. Yeah, let's keep going with this just a little bit more. This red violet is just bringing us back some of that cool temperature in the mid-tone. I think that's one of the hard things about this scene is there's a lot of dark and middle tone, and it's very tempting to want to go light and bright all the time. All right, I would like to just add a bit of yellow to see where that takes us. Like this stem. Now this is a greenish yellow, friends. This is not yellow. I'm moving toward, warmer and warmer components in these leaves. And this stem is really bright lime yellow. Get another. Right in here. I see this yellow kind of taking at the tip of a lot of those leaves. I'm seeing it. And I just want to be careful not to overdo this one because it is a lot of color. Maybe just one little spot in there on the, get that stem touching that flower. And I'm going to go a little less yellow and push some of this light in. So we're coming up the value spectrum to a lighter value now that's going to allow that leaf to really jump out from the it's going to pull it forward so it progresses. And I'm just laying a little of this over that previous yellow just to push it in, create a little bit of texture on that leaf. This really helps. Now it's coming alive. That's just a little too, that's a little too light. Maybe just a bit more right in here. All right, great. So now it's emerging. It's a little sloppy up here. We got to carve at it. We've got to carve at it a little bit more to clean that up, but let's just check and see where we're at. Do we have some more questions? Yes, okay. Cindy has a question. Alan, do you start with less saturated colors first, then build up? Yeah, I probably do, in the sense that I like to establish a sense of the shapes and their values before I go to full saturation. I like to see those darks, middles, and lights in their basic shape formations. And then as I get more confident, I also get more saturated. So that's, I think, true. And I do a lot of accenting toward the end of the painting, which, some more of that color dancing. I really like to know that I've got some structure and stability before I go there first, okay? Ursula has a question. What kind of sketch paper are you using? Is it textured? Yeah, I use, let me grab one. Yeah, the sketch that I use today is Strathmore toned gray. It's these little Strathmore toned gray. And it's really drawing paper. It doesn't have a strong texture, but it has a really nice surface. It's the 400 series Strathmore. So I really like doing my thumbnails on that. That's what I like best. And it comes in toned gray, also toned tan. Love them both. Barbara Stewart. Hi, Barbara. I paint in oils. Do you think these demos lend themselves to oil painting? I do. I think they actually, you could paint alla prima in a very similar fashion. Certainly start with a toned canvas in this case, or board panel, and then work on top of it. Your issue is going to be drying time and color mixing, right? So if it's an alla prima, you're going to get it all done in one shot while it's wet. But you've got to deal with that color mixing component, which I'm not going to jump into, but I do think principally how we're doing this completely relates, because I've also painted in oils throughout my career. Less now with all the activity in pastel, but I've gone back and forth through the years and found that that's pretty effective. Okay? All right, so let's clean this. Let's clean these guys up a little bit. Let's see what we can do. So I've got a really dark alizarin crimson, and I'm gonna try, well, it's not quite as dark as I thought. It's dark-ish, but it can still cut in on that outside shape of some of these forms. And I can narrow this one a little bit. I think I got a little carried away. So I'm just gonna sculpt in on that background. And squint my eyes as I do, just to see the big simple mass. Wondering if I do have that really nice dark, this probably works. See how this works for a moment. This is a darker red that we can push in up here. Sometimes if you notice that your scene lacks clarity and it lacks punch, it's not just about lightening the value, it's about darkening the contrast as well. Like, get those darks nice and dark, really make sure they're anchored at the darkest value for you, and that will give you a lot of clarity and a lot of pop very quickly. So this is a warm color actually, which is interesting. It just has the value, so I'm going to use it around these petals and flowers and all my little flower words. It must be painful inside the comments about my silly flower descriptions. Be kind to me, friends. All right, pushing that darker value in on that right side. Okay, I want to just cut in on this edge. Let's see if I can do this. And just get back that nice little point on that. See, cutting in on the negative shape can create a more refined shape for you, instead of just trying to draw the positive shape, in this case the leaf. Great. Just going to add a little blue back on top of this color because I like the blue. So you can see them mixing with one another from the reddish to the bluish. To me, for whatever reason, I just think the shapes are so critical in getting this to feel right. So really, I'm not doing anything but refining that outside shape at the moment. And it ought to make the flowers look more believable as the shapes clarify. So those outside shapes are really important. And then we want to ensure that once we nail those, that we capture the turn of the form on our subject. Let's put a little value right in there next to that flower and frame it in. Oh yeah, that looks good. Just a little mixing of that blue in with the atmospheric blue-gray. I'm going to use this blue into my petals, leaves. Go right off the bottom there. There we go. We get a little. Just cutting a bit of negative shape in between those leaves. That's much better. And you know, this guy feels a little lacking. I'm going to try a purple, a cooler purple, just to put some shadow onto it. Really let it sit behind a little, but also be, I don't know, I just want it to have a little more atmosphere. I think that warm, rusty red we used at the beginning is just a little too much. And this is probably too cool, honestly. It's nice, but I'm going to put some red violet back over it, mix the two together. Just take a little time. Get those shapes right. Build up that value relationship. Let's just put a little more dark value on this one so it sits back there. Let's get back into that lighter red violet. And then the pink. That's going to be too warm. Just getting more little subtle gradations from the mid-tone reds toward these lighter value and cooler pinks. So we build up that sense of the tulip texture, that petal. And just try to keep it simple while we do. A little bit even up here. Great. I'm going to put those down, clean my fingers. How are we doing on time? Let's check it out. It's after the hour. Should I answer a couple more questions and then? Okay, what I'll do is I'll answer a couple more questions and then I'll do my last touches on this piece, okay? Okay, Virginie. Hello, Alan. Do you also blend the colors? Yeah, I do sometimes. I'm careful about it, and I'm very intentional about it. So I won't blend unless I really notice that I want to, say I want to just quiet something, then I will. So the answer is yes, but I'm real careful about it. And when I'm doing a 1 hour demo, I'm going to do less blending because I'm just building that up. So, but I do blend. It's just, you know, thoughtfully. Thoughtfully. Question from Alicia. Hi, Alicia. Hi, Alan. Do you leave your pastels uncovered after a painting, or do you cover them to protect them? If so, with what? Good question. So, I mean, they live in the studio, and I don't have sunlight or UV light, you know, really coming and hammering my pastels to worry about. So I don't cover the pastels that I have in trays unless they're stacked. I do have some trays that are stacked, which they are covered, but they are protected in the sense that all of my pastels are in either trays or palette boxes that can cover and protect them so that they're not going to fall. Okay, that's the deal. Let's get this thing done. Okay, let's take it down the home stretch, see what we can do. I'm looking for a couple of other pinks. Got a little Schminke pink in my hand here. Just looking for those moments where that lighter transition occurs. And, you know, just putting a little freshness in here and there. That works well. I want to add some of that wonderful red again. A dark red. This is a nice, rich Cad Red Deep with lots of punch to it. Right in between where those petals separate, can indicate that. Cut inside of where this flower, the petals are laying in. Instead of using anything dark, we're really using that rich red as the darker color inside those recessions of the petals as it closes. I don't want this one to get too perfect, so I'm just going to break that edge a little bit. And just come into this a little more. Wonderful red. Now let's use that really strong red again. And we'll take a look. I'm going to use it into this middle section. I'm going against that line just to add some texture. And we're creating impressionistic paintings here, painterly interpretations, so I want to see some texture. Very fun. And perhaps, I think, you know, I'm thinking some kind of blue that's stronger might be fun. I'm looking, that's probably not it. I want to just check one of my deep dark blues. This is just a stronger chroma blue just to put a little more color into the background. I like that. I think that's going to help. It's just almost too quiet back there in the background. See, we cut at that edge, we create something more attractive. And we put a little chroma that sparkles up that background, makes it a little more exciting to look at as we move through here. I think this blue is a wonderful addition to the background, really livens it up. Just looking at other ways to deploy that color. And I'm thinking once again about how I could, just find a really dark green. I should have dug one out before everything. Maybe this one's, that's a nice color green. A little bit of that shadowy feel on this leaf. This is a soft pastel, it's just a little last piece of it. That was fun. I had this little piece of pastel, I just kind of whittled it away. It's gone. The last of it just crumbled into my little dust catcher. So you can see how that blue really helped create some interest up in the top of the background. Maybe just a little. This is a light violet, and it's different. It's not pink, so it's just a different light, and that will create just that sense of that what white would do, but it's not white. It's a light violet. And these are just kind of like the sparkles in the eyes. A little lighter in value than everything else we've been using. Sneaking in on those petals and trying to carve them out just that bit more. And we'll exercise restraint with this. We don't want to go too crazy, but I do want to, give that sense of the light on this side, so there's a nice indication of volume. Maybe just right in here. We're right on the home stretch here for the sake of the demonstration. We want to keep this not too much longer than an hour. Oh, how I would love to just keep painting, but alas, it gets boring after a while. So that's good. Looks nice. I'm just looking if there's an accent color that the petal could use. Maybe just a touch of the yellow-green here and there. I'll blend that in just so it's there, but not so much. That's better. Looks good. One other unique blue here that is just a bit different than the last one. In the same, this is all about just checking in on those outside shapes. And just to transition that. Not too much board showing through here, mostly covered the dark. All right. Well, there we go. We've got some wonderful, joyful tulips here in springtime. What a great way to spend some of our Earth Day, to paint along together, create some flowers, and connect with one another. Thanks for showing up. That's awesome. I'm so happy to see you here and get to spend this time with you. And I just want to encourage you to take heart, keep going, keep painting every day if you can. And if you're a part of the Create 30 Challenge, we are at day 22. We've got 8 more days in April, and you can do it. So create something beautiful today. It's just really been fun to be with you. If you haven't been following along with me on Instagram, please do. I've been posting all my work there. That's at Alain Picard, A-L-A-I-N Picard, over on Instagram. And you can follow along to everything we're creating over there. And as well as I'll be going live on Fridays at 12:30 on Instagram, just with some kind of lunchtime word of encouragement each week. You can check me out there as well. But keep painting. And it's been fantastic to be with you today. This is the part where we get to say goodbye until next time. So I'll see you in the next video, and take care.